They laughed at me right after Grandma's funeral, literally while the will was being read, and my cousin whispered, "Don't worry, Luna's used to getting nothing." Everyone chuckled. Even my own mother didn't speak up for me. They had no idea I was already richer than the entire family combined. If you've ever been underestimated, you need to hear what happened next. Hit that subscribe, tap like, and share this story with someone who needs a win today. At that moment, sitting at the far end of the family table, all I could do was smile. I wasn't angry. I wasn't hurt. I was ready. They thought I was just the weird quiet one who worked at some small online job. No one asked me what I'd been doing for the last 5 years because they didn't care. I was the failure. Remember, what they didn't know was that I'd been building 3 silent online businesses, one in e-commerce, one in digital marketing, and one as a software reseller. I had LLCs, international clients, and a hidden condo in Miami bought in cash, but none of that mattered to them. They only cared about showing off. That night, we had a family dinner. Aunt Cheryl kept talking about how her son, Brad, got a job at some corporate firm and how not everyone can be a professional YouTuber like Luna is trying to be. Her words dripped with sarcasm and yet I smiled. I always smiled. Because I wanted them to underestimate me. It was the only way my plan would work. The twist began when Uncle Darren, who handled the family trust, mentioned that one of Grandma's old cabins was left to whoever could prove they needed it most. Everyone rolled their eyes and moved on, except me. Because that cabin sat on land I had already quietly bought the mineral rights to, it was worth over $2 million in untapped value. Still, they kept calling me Poor Luna, asking if I needed help paying for dinner, sliding me their leftovers with fake sympathy. And when I offered to pay the check, my own brother said, "No need to stress your budget, sis, it's on us." But they didn't know, I had bought the restaurant we were sitting in, just last month. I hadn't told a soul. I was waiting for the perfect moment, and that moment was coming faster than they knew. The moment came 3 days later, at the family investor night, something Uncle Darren cooked up where everyone could pitch business ideas to wealthy connections in the family. I wasn't invited. No one even told me it was happening. I only found out because Grandma's old friend, Ms. Evelyn, called me and said, "Sweetheart, are you not coming to Darren's big event? Everyone's bringing pitch decks." I laughed softly and said, "They must have forgotten to tell me." Truth? They didn't forget. They just assumed I had nothing worth pitching, but I showed up anyway. When I walked into the country club ballroom, heads turned like I was a cockroach in a designer dress. My cousin Madison whispered loudly, "What's she doing here?" Brad smirked. Aunt Cheryl tightened her lips. No one offered me a seat. So I stood in the back. The first pitch was Brad's, some fitness app with no tech team, no users, just a name and a hope. They clapped like he'd reinvented electricity. Then Madison pitched a luxury candle line she hadn't even launched yet. Again, applause. I watched in silence, hands folded, not even touching the glass of overpriced champagne. Someone finally handed me, then Uncle Darren said, "That's all for tonight, folks, unless anyone else wants to embarrass themselves." The room laughed, and that's when I stepped forward. "I have something to share," I said, loud and clear. You could feel the air freeze. I pulled out a remote from my purse and clicked the projector. The screen behind me lit up with a live dashboard. "This is the revenue from my e-commerce store, $2.3 million gross in the last 18 months. I clicked again. "Here's my marketing agency, 64 clients, 3 continents, $0 in debt." Another click. "And this is the platform I just licensed to one of the biggest online learning companies in the US. They paid me $500,000 up front." The room went silent. For once, even Madison had no words, but I wasn't done. "I didn't come here to ask for money. I came to let you all know, you don't own the narrative anymore. I do. And by the way, the cabin Grandma left to whoever needed it most? I'm claiming it. But not because I need it." I pulled out a folder and handed it to Uncle Darren. "That land sits on a lithium deposit. I own the rights. And I already sold a lease to an energy firm for $2.8 million. Dead silence. My brother's mouth hung open. Aunt Cheryl turned red. Brad looked like he was going to pass out, and me? I smiled, calm and steady, but I could see it in their faces, the shame, the regret, the fear. They finally realized. They had no idea who I'd become, and I wasn't finished yet. The fallout began instantly. As I walked off the stage, Brad actually tried to chase after me, stammering, "Hey, Luna, maybe we could, collaborate on that learning platform you mentioned?" Madison, who used to pretend I didn't exist at family dinners, suddenly wrapped her arm around mine like we were besties. "We should totally do a candle line together. We could call it Empowered by Luna." I didn't even respond. I just kept walking, but the real storm hit the next morning. Aunt Cheryl called me at 7:12 a.m. Not to apologize. "No, of course not." She said, "Sweetie, we just want to be more supportive from now on. We were thinking of creating a family business group. Maybe you could lead it." Let it? The same woman who once said I'd end up working at a checkout lane wanted me to guide the family like some corporate Moses. I politely declined. That afternoon, my brother Kyle invited me to lunch. Said he wanted to reconnect. But when the check came and I didn't reach for my wallet, he got twitchy. "So, I was wondering if maybe you'd be willing to help me refinance my student loans? Just till I get promoted." Promoted? He worked in Dad's company. He was the promotion. I leaned forward, looked him dead in the eyes, and said, "You guys made fun of me for 10 years. Not once did anyone ask me how I was doing. Why now?" He looked down at his water. "We didn't know." "No, Kyle. You didn't want to know." After that, I stopped responding to their calls and texts. For 2 weeks straight, they blew up my phone. Every cousin suddenly wanted to hang out or run an idea by me. Even Uncle Darren sent me a voice note, "Let's grab coffee. We could learn a lot from you." They didn't want to learn. They wanted access. So, I made my move. I hired a lawyer and formally claimed the cabin deed through the clause Grandma left. Then I posted a single photo on social media, me standing in front of that rustic little house, keys in hand, with the caption, "They said I was the failure of the family. But Grandma always knew better." It went viral. Old classmates started messaging me. Business pages reposted the story. Even a motivational account on TikTok turned it into a slideshow. Suddenly, I was the headline. I was the inspiration, but the real twist, the company that leased the land under the cabin? They offered me a partnership. Not just money, equity. I was no longer the girl working quietly in her room. I was the woman who owned the land they stood on, and my family? They were about to realize just how deep my roots went. 1 week later, I received an invitation to a family legacy dinner at a private estate. Gold embossed cards. Champagne RSVP. Hosted by none other than Uncle Darren. The theme? Celebrating generational success. It was a trap, but I wasn't afraid. I arrived in a sleek black Tesla, stepped out in heels they swore I couldn't afford, and walked into a room full of wolves dressed in designer clothing. Everyone smiled, fake smiles. The kind that say, "We're only being nice because we want something." Darren stood to make a toast. "Tonight, we honor the future of our family empire, and welcome back Luna, whose unexpected rise has inspired us all." Inspired, these were the same people who once laughed when I got rejected from my first job. The same ones who said, "Maybe you're not built for success, Luna. Try something smaller. Be realistic." Now, they wanted to honor me. I didn't clap. I just watched them, closely. Then it began. Aunt Cheryl mentioned needing an investor for her real estate flip project. Brad slipped me a folder titled, BradTech 2.0. Madison pulled me aside to pitch her new skincare brand that was totally clean, but, like, super luxurious. Every one of them was desperate, but the final twist came when Darren took me aside and said, "Look, Luna, I'll be honest. The family's finances, they aren't what they used to be. We need someone strong. Smart. Like you. Maybe you could take a more active role managing our assets." I stared at him. Then said 5 words I had waited years to say, "I'm not part of this family." His face dropped. "I may share your blood," I continued, "but I don't share your values. I built something without lies, manipulation, or stepping on others. That's not your legacy. That's mine." Then I left. The next day, I posted one final update, me standing outside the cabin, now fully renovated, solar panels gleaming, a private property sign freshly installed, caption? "From invisible to unstoppable. This is what happens when you believe in yourself, quietly, fiercely, and unapologetically." That post? 3.4 million views in 48 hours. I didn't just build an empire. I built peace, power, freedom, and to anyone who's ever been mocked, overlooked, or pushed to the side, just know, sometimes being the failure is exactly what makes you fearless, because the people who laugh at your silence never hear you coming. 3 months later, I was invited to speak at a women's leadership conference in LA, not because I had a famous last name, but because I earned it. The same Luna they once called lost was now headlining a panel next to Fortune 500 founders, and guess who showed up uninvited? My mother. She waited outside the venue, sunglasses on, voice shaky. Luna, can we talk? I didn't know how successful you'd become. I didn't know you had it in you. That line, didn't know you had it in you, like ambition, was something only the rest of the family deserved to carry. I looked at her. Calm, centered. Not angry anymore. You didn't believe in me when it mattered, I said quietly. When I needed support, I got silence. When I asked for encouragement, I got laughter. She wiped her tears, but I didn't flinch. I'm not here for apologies. I'm here because I worked for it. Alone. And I'm okay with that. I walked away. Not because I hated her, but because I had healed enough not to need her validation. That night, I sat on the balcony of my Miami condo, the city lights flickering like a mirror to the fire inside me. My phone buzzed, another deal confirmed. A licensing agreement for my marketing tools. Another 6 figures, but the money didn't thrill me anymore. What thrilled me was the silence, the peace of knowing that I proved everyone wrong without screaming for attention. That I never had to beg to be seen. That every laugh they threw at me was now a step on the path I built brick by brick alone. Now? I own the land they mocked me on. I own the silence they tried to bury me in. I own my name, not theirs. And you? If you're watching this, wondering if your time will come, it will, because the quiet ones, the underestimated, the overlooked, they don't disappear, they build, and one day, the whole world hears their name, just like they finally heard mine. Luna. The one they called a failure, now the only name they can't stop saying.